editor-in-chief of 800 Democrat, dear friend of mine and of the program. We're going to discuss Marjorie Taylor Greene, the freshman congresswoman from Georgia who was stripped of her committee assignments yesterday by the House because of her conspiracist, violent conspiracy theories and insane views that she's posted online. Democrats drawing a line in the sand about what is acceptable workplace culture. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Kamala Harris casting the first tie-breaking vote in the Senate today of her vice presidency. All of this and more on the AM Report. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the program. I'm Alex Mahajer. Thank you so much for joining. We have got people chiming in from all across the country and the world, which is really cool to see when people are chiming in from other countries. Yeah, Pablo, I'm getting your message, but I don't think I can do that right at the moment. But thank you for the HAPS team for always putting us together and standing behind us. Hello, Pablo from Los Angeles. Hello, my daughter Jose from Compton, and appreciate the awards. Is that the Namaste award? Oh, it's a Yama. It's a llama. That's hilarious. Thank you for that, Adam. Thank you for the awards. If you're watching on the HAPS app, website, or platform, click the award button. Let us know you're enjoying it. If you're watching on Facebook, Reddit, YouTube, Periscope, Twitter, leave a comment and we will bat around with each other live on air. This morning, we've got a lot of headlines to cover, but to do that, I'd like to welcome to the program a dear friend of the program, Rance Collins. He's the editor-in-chief of 800 Democrat. Good morning, Rance.
Hi, Alex. Good morning. It's so good to be here.
What a week, eh?
I mean, God. There is no slow week anymore. This is just reality.
I remember a time when 2020 was coming to an end and we were like, oh, thank God, like what a crazy year 2020. Let's let that year go to just die and be in the past. And literally in the first 3 weeks of 2021, we had an insurrection, an impeachment, and an inauguration 1 week after the other. And then Joe Biden became president, and it's been still pretty crazy in the news cycle. And I want to cover some of the headlines this morning with you, but really kind of an exciting day for Vice President Kamala Harris this morning and for Democrats. She was able to cast her first tie-breaking vote in the Senate. This is, of course, the consequences of elections are laid bare for us right here. The vice president passed a procedural hurdle for COVID-19 relief. So the Senate passed a budget resolution early this morning, which is an important procedural hurdle that allows Democrats to now draft and pass President Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief package without the threat of a filibuster from the GOP. The measure passed 51-50 on a party line vote after the vice president showed up at the Capitol to break the tie. And we do have video of this, and I want to play that for you, Rance, and then get your reactions about Vice President Kamala Harris and her first tie-breaking vote. Here it is.
The nays are 50, the Senate being equally divided. The vice president votes in the affirmative, and the concurrent resolution as amended is adopted.
Boom. Rance, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, that's not the last time we're going to see that. First of all, that's probably going to be a pretty regular occurrence for the next 2 years because we have a 50-50 divide, and I am sure there are other votes that she's going to have to break in the future. But goodness, I wonder if she was thinking like, man, now that I'm not a senator, I'm not going to have to vote for anything for at least 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
Yep. Yeah, here she is back in the Senate casting tie-breaking votes, and I think during the first few years of the Trump administration, when the Republicans had control of the House and the Senate and the presidency, Democrats felt very helpless, and Democratic voters and progressives and people at home felt very helpless watching Republicans just ram through anything they wanted without Democratic support. And we put up a lot of resistance to a lot of the more draconian or troubling policies and laws and legislations that came up in Congress. But nevertheless, we were essentially powerless. So gaining control back, even if it's through a tie-breaking vote for Kamala Harris, we're seeing the consequences of elections, and we're seeing having that power back there's no other way to say it other than it feels really empowering and kind of like a relief at the same time. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, it does feel as if that there's a check on the crazy right now. And to be clear, there's still a lot of crazy. As much as it is nice to have control, we are a nation that has, however much percent of this kind of disturbing either promotion or complacency with the worst of American civilization. And that has such a stronghold on the Republican Party right now that even having this barest minimum 50-50, 51-50 check on that is comforting. But that said, we are having to fend off crazy right now.
Absolutely. And we got some comments that I want to see if we can present. So Care Ford is saying, LOL, 2020 was the minor leagues. Yeah, indeed. 2020 was the minor leagues. So welcome to the big leagues, Rams. We're in 2021 now. Dean is saying hello from Portland. Hello, Dean. BMAIS is saying good conversation and saying he's French. And so hello, Ben from France. I really love that we have an international audience on this program. It makes me very excited. And he's asking a question sort of a little bit off topic, but we might as well ask you, Rance, before we move on to our next subject. What do you think about hedge funds and the problem of financial market manipulation? I'm assuming he's asking because of what happened last week with GameStop, where Reddit users drove up the price of the GameStop stock artificially and made a huge profit off of it and ended up bankrupting hedge fund managers who were trying to short that stock. What are your thoughts on that? Well, before we move on.
I think that there has been a huge problem with a more professional market in recent decades, and I think I am of the opinion that it is a good thing that these cracks in the system are being exposed so that it can be more fair and equitable to invest in the future.
Yeah. And, here's the thing. Anyone who thinks that the stock market is supposed to represent the fair value of these companies and whether these companies are profitable. And anyone who believes that it practically works like that is kidding themselves. Mm-hmm. It's about speculation, and it's about driving prices up and who's buying more stocks and what. And this exposed that, this laid that bare. So, yeah, I think when we hear Joe Biden talking about big structural change, which is something that he borrowed from Elizabeth Warren's presidential campaign, it's very much so needed. We need broad structural change to get a hold of sort of these loopholes in our systems and our financial markets. He's saying corrupt government financial elites is the American way, and I don't know if I buy that. I think there are problems, but we still have one of the oldest democracies in the world. And I will note, our democracy held, even though in the face of a severe stress test like Trump, our democracy did hold. So I don't know if I agree with that, young man, big iron cowboy.
I don't think fight with big iron cowboy.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't get in a fight with big iron cowboy. All right.
Yeah.
Well, in any case, sorry. Don't send me hate mail. Okay. But really, Rand's bigger news item I wanted to cover with you, and one of the major reasons I had you on today, is Marjorie Taylor Greene, the freshman congresswoman from Georgia. Democrats voted yesterday to strip her of her committee assignments. So this was a resolution that had bipartisan support, sort of unexpectedly, but nevertheless, the House voted 230 to 199 to strip Marjorie Taylor Greene of her committee assignments. 11 Republicans voted yes. This is more Republicans than voted to support Donald Trump's impeachment. So maybe we're starting to come around, although I'll note that the names on the list were sort of names not on the list were sort of surprising. I expected more Republican support for this, just because you would think that Republicans want to rid themselves of a QAnon conspiracy theorist from their ranks. But you know, what are you going to do? Rance, here is Marjorie Taylor Greene on the House floor providing her defense yesterday. There was I'm going to ask you, actually. So we've got two videos. We've got Steny Hoyer, who gave a very rousing speech on the House floor when they were delivering arguments about whether or not to strip her of her committee assignments. And then we've got Marjorie Taylor Greene's defense. What do you think we should play first?
Go with hers and then his. Let him have
the final say. All right. Here's Marjorie Taylor Greene yesterday in response to this movement before the vote on her being stripped of her committee assignments in the House.
Tickets in my day. What you need to know about me is I'm a very regular American, just like the people I represent in my district and most people across the country. I wasn't a political person until I found a candidate that I really liked, and his name is Donald J. Trump, when he ran for president. And then I started seeing things in the news that didn't make sense to me, like Russian collusion, which are conspiracy theories also, and have been proven so. These things bothered me deeply, and I realized just watching CNN or Fox News, I may not find the truth. And so what I did is I started looking up things on the internet, asking questions like most people do every day. Use Google. And I stumbled across something, and this was at the end of 2017, called QAnon. The problem with that is, though, is I was allowed to believe things that weren't true, and I would ask questions about them and talk about them. And that is absolutely what I regret. Because if it weren't for the Facebook post and comments that I liked in 2018, I wouldn't be standing here today, and you couldn't point a finger and accuse me of anything wrong. You see, school shootings are absolutely real. And every child that is lost, those families mourn it. I also want to tell you 9/11 absolutely happened. I remember that day crying all day long watching it on the news. And it's a tragedy for anyone to say it didn't happen. And so that I definitely want to tell you, I do not believe that it's fake.
So many problems with this, Rance, but what are your thoughts? I wanted to give our viewers the fair and balanced, not to be a Fox News slogan, but I wanted to give you guys her response too, so that this wasn't just us piling on her. She did defend herself, and I thought it important to show you what that defense was, but I find it very problematic. Rance, what did you think of her defense on the House floor?
Well, first of all, trying to draw a comparison between what she believed with QAnon and Russia is absolutely ridiculous. There was a coordinated effort by Russia to undermine both the 2016 and the 2020 elections. They were successful in 2016. They were not successful in 2020. That has been proven. That was proven with House and congressional investigations. The only thing that never was completely linked was the potential of a Trump collusion with that. But that said, he did take meetings with Russian leaders in Trump Tower. It's not like this is a conspiracy that doesn't have some type of merit. It's not really a conspiracy. It's more like this is something that happened, and we think that Trump may have been directly involved, but we're not 100% certain. That's completely different than what she was believing in, which included things about Jewish people using lasers to what was it the Jewish people
Burned
did?
down to start the California wildfires last year.
Start California wildfires, because what could they possibly, I mean, like, who knows? And this includes believing that there is a large scale pedophile ring that is exclusively being run by prominent liberals in both politics and in Hollywood. And it's being, this is where that whole like pizza part, it started with Pizzagate, which, included the ridiculous thing about the Clintons and then grew from there. There are videos of her talking on Facebook Live that have her describing how she believes that the Clintons are involved in this, and these people are involved in this, and that person's involved in this. And it's all about these absolutely ridiculous conspiracy theories that, yes, she 100% bought into and promoted. And this also includes her belief that 9/11 was an inside job. She didn't deny that 9/11 happened. Her conspiracy was how 9/11 happened. So what she was saying there on the House floor wasn't even addressing what the mistruth she was saying was, And she also says that, she hasn't, if we took away all of the things she did online, there was nothing else that she could have been accused of that caused a problem. Well, that's not true either, because what you're about to show with our amazing majority leader in the Congress is how she used her campaign to keep promoting violent rhetoric. So maybe you should play that before I go on.
Yeah, and before we play this clip of Steny Hoyer, I just want to also say that Marjorie Taylor Greene's defense on the House floor, while it seemed like she was humbling herself a little bit, you have to understand she knew that this vote was coming, and that in the press, publicly, and in her campaign emails and her emails to her supporters, she is refusing to apologize. She's refused to take back her statements. She was privately acknowledging that she felt like the Parkland shootings were real to victims of Parkland, but publicly refusing to pull back her statements. And it wasn't until she was on the precipice of being stripped from her committee assignments. And can you imagine being disciplined at work in your first couple weeks on the job?
And closed door Republican caucus meeting that happened the day before yesterday, Adam Kinzinger, who voted both for the impeachment and voted for her to be stripped of her committee assignments. He was one of the Republicans who did both. One of the few Republicans. I don't know if there is another Republican who voted for both. You can check me on that. But he said that he did not ever hear an apology from her in the closed door meeting that happened day before yesterday. So she said, "Oh, I believed all this stuff and all these people misled me, and but yeah, none of that.
Yeah, no, she refused to apologize publicly in that closed door when she was addressed by House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy and the GOP steering committee about this week in advance of this vote. The reason we have to tell you that the reason that this vote even happened is because the Republican caucus refused to discipline her over this. And why? Because they are afraid that she is the future of the Republican Party, and they still fear Trump's influence over their party and are afraid to speak out, even though we know that they've disciplined other members of their caucus, like Steve King, in the past for much, much less than what we heard from Marjorie Taylor Greene. And that segues perfectly to this clip of Steny Hoyer. He's the House Democratic Majority Leader in the House and a staple of this institution and a very beautiful wordsmith, I have to say. I appreciate his dedication to the sort of the holding this institution in a certain regard and carrying yourself in this institution with a certain weight and gravitas. And this is Steny Hoyer talking about not comments that Marjorie Taylor Greene made in 2018. These are comments she made months ago during her campaign. So you can't say this was from Facebook from like years ago before I was even in politics. This is what you use to ascend to your current leadership position and why Republicans must repudiate you. And here's Steny Hoyer.
I heard about motherhood today. 2 of those women, between them, have 6 children. They're mothers. One of them does not have children. And she's come to this body asking for more housing for people, for more health care for people, for more income for people. How awful. And they're not the squad. They're Elon. They're Alexandria. And they're Rashida. They are people. They are our colleagues. And yes, you may have disagreements. But I don't know anybody, including Steve King, who you precluded from going on committees, for much less. And this is an AR-15 in the hands of Miss Greene. This was on Facebook just a few months ago. That is a message of peace and reconciliation and peaceful democratic dialogue. The squad's worst enemy, AR-15, in hand.
Sounds like the guns I fled.
I have never, ever seen that before.
And that's House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer. Rancid, you saw this video. I was very moved by it because he really put this into practical terms, that these people that you're targeting, the squad, AOC, the Democrats, this heightened political language where we view our political adversaries as not opponents, but enemies that must be destroyed, murdered, AR-15, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi should be executed. These views are dangerous. It wasn't that long ago that Gabby Giffords, a Democratic congresswoman, was shot in the face in Arizona because of that. In that instance, someone who suffered from mental illness, but because of increased political heated rhetoric, and it's only gotten worse since then and not better. What are your thoughts on Steny Hoyer's presentation and on this culture of heated political rhetoric?
Well, it was powerful, and it was particularly powerful that he walked it over to the Republican side of the chamber so that they had to look at the blow up of what this Facebook post was. And it basically takes everything that Marjorie Taylor Greene was trying to argue about herself and throws it in her face, because she's not remotely sorry for anything that she does. I don't believe that she stopped believing in all of her conspiracies. She just wanted to keep her committee assignments. She didn't want to be reprimanded. She wants to hold her AR-15 and scare, the squad as much as possible. It was only, I'm young enough to remember last week whenever Cori Bush had to have her office moved so that she wasn't so close to Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was threatening her, not just in person, but also online on Twitter. It's actually something that you could go look up and look at right now. This is not a person who has been absolved of her sins, who has, come to Jesus, walked down the aisle, thrown up her hands and say, I believe. No, this is a person who is simply trying to, not get in trouble and she did anyway, and that's exactly what she deserved. But more than that, we need to make sure that she never holds another term after this one. Unfortunately, she lives in a very heavily Republican district, but I am not beyond endorsing a better primary candidate with this one.
Well, we got a question from Dean on the subject, asking, how did she win her election? If all of this, who dropped the ball? Is there any comment from her opposition in her election? I think it's worthy to know. I believe she unseated a Republican in the primary in this seat, who was sort of an establishment Republican. I don't recall exactly. And so, yeah, I think your guess is as good as mine. I think that what we know is that this is a very conservative rural district in Georgia, and that she there, in some districts in the United States, you have hundreds and thousands of people who vote for this, and they're very competitive seats. If you're here in Los Angeles and you want to run for Congress, you're going to face steep opposition because it's a huge city, millions of people, lots of hundreds of thousands of people in the districts. And then some districts have very, very, very rural, like 10,000 people live in that district. And that so it's much, much easier to run for Congress. You got to convince less people. You got to reach less people. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, for whatever reason, primaried the person who was in that seat and beat them. And I think that is why you may have landed yourself in Congress, because that very small faction of people who you are speaking to felt like you were an appropriate person to put into the halls of Congress. But as a body, as a nation, we have to make sure to repudiate this kind of thinking. And we have another comment that's saying, you're sick of cancel culture. Disagreements are needed. Disagreements are needed over substantive arguments, over substantive disagreements about policy, about how we want to move forward, about what we want to represent in this country, not about what the facts are. There's no such thing as disagreeing over facts. The facts are the facts. Parkland happened. Sandy Hook happened. 9/11 is real. The California wildfires are because of global warming.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? There's no such thing as a satanic cabal of Democratic pedophiles. There was no such thing as the storm that was going to happen on Inauguration Day. And you want to know how I know that's true? Because it didn't happen, now did it? It wasn't a fact. It wasn't real. Yeah. And if we don't start biting back and repudiating people who use conspiracies to rise to power, and stop pretending like this is, we need to be having these disagreements. No, we do not. This isn't cancel culture. This is saying you're batshit crazy and don't belong in the halls of Congress. We're not having a debate over whether or not your insane views are real, because they're not. That takes us back 15 steps. All right. Someone disagrees that wildfires are not due to global warming. We're not going to disagree about the facts. The facts are the facts. Rance, thoughts?
Yes, wildfires have always happened. They're increasing because the temperature of the earth is increasing. That's the same reason we're getting lots of other cataclysmic weather events right now. 99.9% of the scientific community agrees on this. Why can't you get on board? Is it because you read something that Marjorie Taylor Greene read on Q? No, that is not how anything works. We deal with facts in the society, and we deal with candidates who believe in facts. And we don't deal with candidates who have opposing opinions, when opposing opinions means that it's okay to threaten other members of this congressional body. It's okay to have an advertisement where I'm holding an AR-15 and pointing it at people who I am going to be serving with. That is not what this country is about, and it should be held accountable. And in any other point in time, we would hold that accountable. We actually had overwhelming support to impeach and convict a president during the 1970s because he knew about, I should say, a failed attempt to break into the DNC. That was enough for people to go, you know what, we got to impeach and convict this guy, and then he resigned in shame because of that. Why can't we, in 2021, agree that a congressional member that helps to incite an insurrection, that believes in very dangerous conspiracy theories that have radicalized our country, why can't we agree that that person who had an ad on Facebook, one ad, we're not talking about her entire campaign, where she is holding an AR-15 telling 3 of the 4 members of the squad that she is their worst nightmare. Why can't we agree that that's not okay in this country? Why can't we agree that that's a threat? Why is that something that's a differing opinion? It's not a differing opinion. I differ in opinion with Adam Kinzinger on issues running the gamut of what our issues are in this country. I disagreed with George Bush on issues. I hated the Iraq war. I hated his tax cuts. I hated his immigration policies. But you know what? None of that led to the level of disinformation that we are currently at. That is different than having political disagreements. This is a totally different situation where we are allowing a conspiracy to take hold and have a actual strong voice in our government. And what happened yesterday was Democrats stepped up and said, you know what? That's not okay. So no, this isn't about having representatives that have different opinions. Please don't come in here in the comments with that business.
Yeah, and also I'm gonna present this comment because it doesn't really make sense to me. But it's from Big Iron Cowboy. He's just Big Iron Cowboy. He's just been trolling me this whole stream. But I'm gonna entertain this because what? Alex Rance, why do you oppose the Second Amendment? Hey, Big Iron Cowboy, what makes you think that we oppose the Second Amendment?
It's not about the Second Amendment.
No, hold on. Rance, hold on. What makes you think we oppose the Second Amendment? Why is that? Why did you assume that as the premise of your question? Leave me a comment and let me know. Yeah, so tell the facts of the weather patterns over the last blah, blah, blah election. It's global warming denialism. It's so sad that it's like exists. Bro trolling, he asks. No, I was joking about you trolling me, Big Iron Cowboy. I'm very curious to know why you assume that we are against the Second Amendment. Leave me a comment and let me know. We'll try to bat around about that specific issue because I'm not against the Second Amendment. I'm not aware of Rance being against it. I'm against people threatening violence onto others and using.
And you must know I'm against AR-15s being legally available, but I mean.
Well, yeah, the Constitution doesn't protect military-style weapons. And by the way, brush up on the Constitution. The Constitution, free speech, by the way, is not unlimited. Just the way that free speech is not unlimited, there are limitations to our free speech rights. The Second Amendment is not unlimited. You don't get to have to run the streets with bazookas using military-grade weapons, just the way that with the First Amendment, you're not allowed to use speech that incites violence. It's actually not constitutionally protected speech. The government can actually curb your free speech if your speech incites violence. It's one of the limitations to your First Amendment rights. So Big Iron Cowboy says we can't have a discussion. Like, call me after, girl. Like, we'll talk later, okay?
Catch me outside.
Yeah, just catch me in the back. Let's talk about the Second Amendment later, okay? He says he came back midway through. Well, whose problem is that you can stick around for the conversation? I want to thank Rance Collins, editor-in-chief of 800 Democrat, who did stick through this whole conversation. Rance, where can people find you in 800 Democrat?
You can go to 800 Democrat on either, that's the number, 800 Democrat on Facebook or Twitter. Please give us a follow and a like. We have all the latest breaking information for you.
Great. And Kingston Poops, whose screen name is Kingston Poops, says that you guys are a joke, which I just think is hilarious. Hey, Kingston, knock, 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 knock. Who's there? Madame. Madame who? Madame Foot stuck in the door. There's a joke. And so is your screen name. Dun, 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 dun. Hey, thank you so much to Rance Collins, editor-in-chief, 800 Democrat. We love and appreciate you, and we'll talk to you soon, Rance.
Have a good night, day, whatever.
Whatever. This has been the AM Report, perhaps News Network of Now. We are live every weekday morning with all of your political news and headlines to get your day started right. If you like this journalism, if you like this content, please consider subscribing to it or becoming a monthly recurring sponsor like Daryl Archibald or Adam Cobb or Sarah Kalogli or Joshua Mast or Tim David. Thank you guys for your monthly sponsorships of the program. Or you can just buy me one singular cup of coffee. Click the award button, let us know you're enjoying it, or click the subscribe button and get notifications when we go live every weekday morning. We will be back on Monday with Miranda Yavor, political scientist, postdoctoral scholar, and professor at Fordham University, teaching politics at Fordham University, to discuss all of what's going on in Congress. And it has been fantastic. Have a great weekend, and we will talk to you next week. Have a great day. Bye-bye.